Pre-game. We've got a big game today. It's an honor to be working with both of you. Carl, you'll be the U1, and Ralph, you're the U2. This is a pre-game that I'm going to start, but in my pre-games, I like everybody to be involved. So don't be afraid to jump in if you have something to add. Everybody's a ref here, so it's not like I have to be in charge. All right. So everybody will get a chance to talk. All right. So the first thing that I like to talk about is communication. We need to communicate. All right. Whether it's verbal or nonverbal, especially during timeouts. That's not a time where we take it off. If I have a timeout and I go to the table and I tell the table the timeout, I'm going to turn around. I'm going to look at whoever has putting the ball in play, and we're going to either say spot or they're able to run. Also, during a timeout, let's make sure we have our shooter if there's free throws involved. All right, I'm going to make sure we have our shooter before I go to the table and report the timeout. So that's super, super important. Okay, timeouts are not times to take a rest. It is time to get our breath, but our mind still has to be in the game. All right, we have to be watching players, especially if they're crossing the court to go to their benches.
Right. We need to be dead.
Exactly. Come alive when the ball is dead. That's exactly right. Thank you. Points of emphasis. And one of the big ones is ball handler dribbler. All right. We know that the defender gets one hot stove touch on that ball handler dribbler. But anytime they put an arm bar on them and keep it on there, or anytime they put an arm bar, two hands or alternating hands, that is a foul. And we need to call that because that doesn't allow the offense to go. The other thing is we need to make sure when the ball handler is driving the lane, all right, that they're not extending their arm because that's an offensive foul. Because when there's contact on a defense and an offensive player, it may not always be on the defensive player. All right, so let's make sure we're watching that. Freedom of movement. Let's make sure that rhythm, speed, balance, and quickness is not impeded. That cutter is allowed to go on their path from point A to point B without being displaced. So we need to make sure that when there is contact, that it's incidental and not a foul. All right. But if their rhythm, speed, balance, and quickness is impeded or interrupted, then that's where the foul comes. Verticality. We know that you can have your arms straight up, right? You're not supposed to be wider than your shoulders. You can't use your arms to prevent somebody from going through. And as a defensive person, you are allowed to have one arm bar, okay, and a hand. It has to be bent. It can't be straight out. No knees, all right? You can't have a knee into the back of that post player. Carl, you want to add anything to that?
Defensive post player immediately has to establish legal guarding position, correct? So if they have two hands, if they have two without the ball, as soon as that ball comes in, defender, it's one hand in the back with the elbow to the arm bar. I'm sorry, or if there's one hand, if they have two on the post player without the ball, as soon as that ball comes in, and the elbow has to be. And,
Great. And also on that post player, when now that post player turns and faces, she now becomes a ball handler dribbler, and so the ball handler dribbler rules apply.
We will have post play in this game because the visiting team has a very good post play.
Great.
Most of the plays run through her. The point guard is well. I know we're going to talk about personnel.
Excellent. That's good to know. All right, great. Rebounding. Let's make sure that the person is boxing out or blocking out and not backing out. Let's make sure on the other end, the offensive player isn't pushing off to get the rebound. So that's why it's really, really important that we do not watch the ball going in the air, that we need to be watching the rebounders. Also, make sure that the defender is not bending over so that it look like the offensive player is coming over the back of the boxing out. All right, so let's make sure we're watching that as well. Free throws, coverage. All right, this has been an issue lately that we know that the shooter can't come, and anybody outside the three-point line cannot come into the lane until the ball hits the rim. We know that everybody in the marked lane spaces can go into the lane as soon as the ball is released. We need to make sure that that person in the top marked lane space is not coming over the free throw line and making contact with that free thrower.
Okay.
All right. That's something that's not being called, and it has been an issue this year. All right. You guys agree?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
let's make sure C is watching that. Go ahead, Carl.
We spoke about the free throw rule this year, right? They can come in prior to the first or after the final. So
The substitute.
yes, let's be wary of that. If we, I know I've had a couple of brain farts where I'm reporting my foul and I see the sub there, the foul, and I turn and that's day room at the sub. We don't have any brain farts there.
Yes. Okay, great.
I was also going to say, in terms of the shot clock, if there's a foul that is happening in the backcourt, we should know where the shot clock gets reset as opposed to where in the front court, where the spot would underneath free throw line, it's going to be in the lower defensive block. If it's above the free throw line, then it's a marker. Also, all the things that you said, it was important for me to hear what you're saying, Sherri, because I've refed with Carl in a couple of games. So I think it's very important 2 minutes that we set the tone and we referee with memory, that we all try to mirror the consistency of the calls in which we are.
Yeah, agreed. Well, let's back up to your 20-second, the shot clock rule. I was going to discuss that as far as new rules and where it's being placed. But yeah, that's super important that we're always looking at the clock, players, clock, time, all the time before the ball's being put in play, wherever the case may be. Yeah, we always have to be looking at the clock. And so, yeah, new rule is if the offensive team gets a rebound, it's reset to 20 seconds. Anytime that there's a foul in the front court or a kicked or fisted ball, it is set to 20 seconds, or if the shot clock is higher, it stays at the higher number. And exactly what you said, reiterate, it either is being put in at the 28-foot line, closest to where the foul occurred, or at the tick mark on the end line near the LDB.
And again,
all right?
That's as long as we're in the front court and team control.
Exactly. Now, if there's a foul in the backcourt, it's reset to 30, right? Great. Good point.
Foul in the front court.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last point of emphasis is bench decorum. We know these coaches. We know home coach. She's great. She's been around the game for a long, long time. She rarely says anything. Remember, if she has a question, we try to answer it, right? If they're making statements that we don't necessarily have to answer that. But if the home coach says something, then we may have missed it because she rarely says anything. So let's be aware of that and try to answer her questions. Carl, you seem to know the away coach a little bit better. Give me some insight on that.
I had them not too long ago, a couple weeks ago. Like I mean, the home coach can be, the visiting coach, somewhat animated, somewhat vocal. You can talk to him. He does, he'll ask a question and he'll let you in. He come back with a follow-up. I did have a situation where I did not only animate his box. Subsequently, we happened to in the game. He knew he would be animated, very vocal. If you're honest and open his question, he'll more or less, he'll be like a dog at a,
okay.
Get at one
okay.
play over.
Okay, great. And since you brought up technical fouls, all right, if and when that occurs, what's going to happen is we're not rushing into it. We are going to come together. Everyone's going to get to speak, and we're going to figure out how we're going to adjudicate the technical foul.
Okay.
All right? So we're not going to rush right into it. Just because you called it, we're going to rush to the table and no, we're going to get together. We're going to discuss it. We're going to get it right.
Okay.
All right. So
and I'm going to say I'm not the type. It's like I said, he can get animated, get vocal. He will, test his limits outside of the box. Just because I gave him a tech previously, I don't need you guys to come get him the first time.
Okay.
If he's acting up and I'm there, he's so
okay.
If see him acting up and let me, maybe I'll kind of try to talk him out of it. But if it is egregious, and obviously he knows that I'm not going to.
Okay, great. We know with bench decorum continuing, we know, now they've got the 38-foot mark. Coaches, we give them a warning if necessary. But if they're out of the box and they're acting crazy, we don't have to give them a warning. We can whack them right away. Right. So just be aware of that as well. All right, good. Let's talk about some plays. Carl, RA, you have any of those?
Yeah,
you had in the past?
I had it. Honestly, the best way to describe it to you. Let me get it out of my bag real quick.
Okay.
All right, let me close my. All right. So team A shot the ball. Team B got the rebound, and I was quick pass up the court. Defender established legally. However, ball handler dribbler her drive. Contact occurred. Our lead official came up. Called an offensive foul. I came running in. So just if you have these plays, right, whatever you see, just referees legal and call the offensive foul. Let it to stay engaged if that established inside or outside. And remember, on or over the RA, if she's anywhere
Agreed.
close, if she's on, if she's in the air, then
Great.
let's just also remember that the play that I had, it did not start in the outside LDBs. Inside the RA, all right, so
Right.
defend inside that R and T.
Right. Great. Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah. Just officiate it the way you see it first, and then if we have information, we'll come in. Now, come in if you're 100% sure. All right. Don't come in and say I think. If you think, don't even bother. You got to know 100%. Let's make sure we're watching off ball. All right. I had a situation last week where a player was actually, we can cue that. I have the play here. Player was trying to set screens. She rolled to the basket. And even though it was in the lead area, I stayed with the play and got the player pushing off. She actually pushed the defender to the ground. And because I stayed engaged with it, I was able to pick that up and called the offensive foul. So make sure we're continuing to stay in our area, watching off ball, and getting that extra stuff going in there.
I can actually build a screener. Actually, does not after her pass to the top of her back screen. Didn't have a whistle. The coach saw the whole thing happen. She questioned me about it. He was fine about it. The ball ended up. The player that got the ball shot a three in the holes. You know, in essence, it wasn't terrible. I mean, it was bad that nobody got it, but it worked out in the end.
Right.
It's just still something that we got to get the obvious.
Right.
Foul. Get the obvious.
Right. Right. Just staying engaged. Okay, great. All right, Ralph, do you have anything to add? Anything that you've had in your games?
Well, I was going to say for this particular game, I haven't had any of these teams, so
Mm-hmm.
it was really good to hear what I was saying with the coaches. Like I said, I'm going to follow your lead, both you and Carl. But what we're going to do is I'm going to make sure that I'm strong, especially with the bench to corner. One particular play that I saw was when there was a ball that was basically coming off of a rebound, and Team B turned into Team A because one girl, A1, possessed. Then they subsequently bobbled the ball. Then they hit the division line, and no one had a call. I was in the lead. It should have been a backcourt violation because they possessed the ball. Just be aware if it's possession or if it's not possession in terms of team control with the rebound. I think that if we could do it over again and I was in the trail, I probably would have called backcourt, but I was in the lead and I was kind of blocked out. And I didn't have definitive knowledge to see what that is. But just be clear of who has possession, if they have possession with it, if it's a backcourt.
That sounds similar to a play I had. I'll see if I can find it, guys. But go ahead.
Great. Yeah, Ralph, I know you're a little nervous today, and don't be. Just rep your game. Carl and I have your back, no matter what happens.
Own your third of the
court, exactly. And like I said, we got your back, and you'll be fine. So don't think too much out there. Just rep your game.
Okay, I will.
Okay. Other than that, we touched on the shot clock rule. You mentioned the substitutions. Make sure that they can come in before the first free throw or after the last successful free throw.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's a new one. Everybody's kind of getting used to that.
We have new terminology. No longer have fouls.
Yes.
All of our disqualifying technical 2 shots on the opposite table.
Correct.
Administrative technical foul of interruption, unless it's for an
administrative. No, that's right.
Number one, they do get the timeout. It costs them 2 shots. But it costs them 2 shots.
Okay.
Just make sure we don't. Then the other rule, a team.
And any team member can shoot the free throw.
Any player can add technical qualifying.
Yep. Let's not correctable errors. Let's not get ourselves into that situation. All right. If we're paying attention and we're concentrating on the game and we don't let our minds wander, we're not going to get into any correctable errors. But we need to make sure that we're in the right time frame before we are to correct an error. But again, let's not get to that. All right.
Agreed.
That's super important. Screening. We actually did not talk about screening. Let's make sure that screener is stationary and that doesn't create the contact. All right. So let's make sure we get that. A lot of times what happens, and it's really not even the screener's fault. It's the ball handler's fault because they don't allow that screener to get set and they go too quick And so the screener is still moving when that ball handler takes off. So let's make sure we're watching that closely. That's all I got, guys. I think, again, let's stay engaged. Let's communicate and let's get it right. All right. We're going to have a great game today. Let's see what the teams do first before we start rotating back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Because if the defense is playing a zone and the offense is just passing the ball around and they're skipping the ball, we don't want to be a ping pong on the end line. So let's wait and see what kind of offense they're running before we start taking off and rotate. Good. Okay. All right. Let's get after it.
All right, let's have a good game.
Yeah, let's have a good game.
Most importantly, guys, let's have fun. They're going to be out there playing. Let's make sure we have some fake smiles. We don't need to be out there, we're the Royal Palace. And it's like you said earlier, if you have questions, all right, the players, and we're not concerned.
Great. Sounds good.
All right. We got to get out there. No stretch, water up, hydrate. Let's get at it.
Spark it up. Let's spark it up.
Let's rock, guys.